What's up, COPD?
Thanks. That's not my new. Those are not my new initials.
What is COPD again? Something to do with you can't breathe, I guess?
Something to do. So I was just telling Travis that I noticed in the last podcast my breathing was coming through really loud. And so I'm going to try to back that off a little bit.
So the breathing, does that have anything to do with your CPAP thing?
Not during the day when I'm awake.
So that's a different condition.
I think that probably the zillion years of smoking have not helped my ability to inhale. Believe it or not, I should be an expert at it.
Is it the inhaling or the exhaling? It sounds like.
No, coming over the recording is when I breathe between making statements. So I just found myself, maybe it was only me, so maybe it's not bothering you folks, but I thought in this last one, because I was particularly up close, so if I put my mouth up close to the mic and then I breathe in, it's very
Darth Vader of you.
Yeah, so I am your father.
So the COPD is a condition that, do you have that?
No, I do not.
What does it stand for?
I don't know. Chronic something.
Chronic,
chronic, Jesus Christ, I don't know.
So what's the CPAP is for you can't inhale then?
So I have sleep apnea. So the back of my throat when I lay down, and probably mostly due to my weight, when I lay down, my throat closes up and it makes me snore, which then now I'm running out of air.
Just breathe, God damn it.
So yes, so sleep apnea.
Most people listen in their cars anyway.
Right.
They can't hear you breathing.
Right. I am listening a lot of the time in headphones. So
with your 1%er,
yeah,
$500 or $1,000 headphones,
which we finally saw on TV the other day. So so they do, guys like this guy on TV right now has little crappy
AirPods?
Apple AirPods or something. So, yeah, we saw somebody with the AirPod Max on television.
Was it your buddy, Kara Swisher?
I don't know. I wasn't watching it. Debbie saw it. I didn't see it. So, not Kara Swisher. No.
She has like a whole headpiece she wears.
Yeah. I mean, she's a professional podcaster,
But even when her TV appearances, she's got her big headphones and her glasses, her Biden aviators.
Yeah, that's a good look.
You stopped wearing your aviators, I noticed.
I wore them for a long, long time, and the only pair I have left, without going on buying a brand new pair, is pretty worn out. So, and I've gotten pretty used to wearing some kind of plastic frame, plastic lens. So, I don't know. It's just I still like wearing them, but I have kind of like the other ones too. So, yeah.
Are yours prescription?
No. I should. I mean, I'm heading that direction. I really need to get in for a full eye exam.
Are Biden's, do we know? Does he wear prescription aviators?
He doesn't appear to wear glasses when he's not wearing the sunglasses, if you think about it, right? So I don't think so.
And actually, I've seen him pull cards or whatever out of his pocket. He appears to be able to read.
Yeah.
I don't mean he can't read, but he can see. He appears to be able to see.
Well, he could have
contact
lenses, yeah.
I guess.
I mean, it seems unusual for someone that's 79 or 92 or whatever he is to have good eyesight, but that happens for some people, right? So,
thank God, right? Because he has so many other problems, with just his because he's old.
Trump Tart doesn't wear glasses on TV either. Do you think he's got perfect eyesight? He's 75 or something.
I'm sure he would say.
Yeah, so he's starting up a new social media. Have you heard about this?
I hope I didn't put my foot in my mouth, because I've been saying for the last, really since January.
Yeah.
After January 6th, I guess I've been saying. Maybe I've been saying it since the inauguration, whenever that was, the 20th or something.
One of the impeachments.
One of the impeachments.
What?
But after we got on the other side of Trump, I have been saying, and I've been trying to refute your claims that Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party. But I have to say, in just the last week or so, he has been in the news more, I think, than he has really in the last several months. I mean, he's not on Twitter, but so I'm not seeing anything he's saying. I'm seeing articles that talk about Trump, whether it's, hey, he wants to run for president again just so he can stay out of jail, or he's taking a shit on Colin Powell's grave, and he did the same thing with McCain. But these are articles written about him. And, people who are around getting information about what he's saying and wherever he's saying it. Why would they do this, Michael? Why would somebody be posting or putting articles out about what Trump is doing? Please, talk me off this ledge.
Well, he does appear to be he is so it's not so much what he's doing at this moment because he's deplatformed and he's already had 2 attempts at starting his own social media thing bite the dust. He has a SPAC, which, do you know what a SPAC is?
Refresh my memory.
I don't know. No, it's a special. S stands for special.
Special. Is this is not an investing thing?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a way of going public without all the scrutiny and all the information that you typically have to provide to take a company public. So a SPAC is a special account shit. It's like a shell that people can invest money in, and then this shell will then be used to open a company, and it'll be public.
That sounds good to me.
Market. Well, I mean, it's
what's wrong with that?
First off, SPACs, it's not really a new thing; it's a new name, and it's a dodgy way to try to bring a company public, and it's used as a way to kind of speed up the process. But in this case, for Donald Trump, it'll be used for him to avoid public disclosure of certain information that would otherwise be required.
This
is going to be called The Truth.
So this is his social media deal. Media. He's going to take it public. Yeah, that's the other thing I read was that he's instantly now more of a billionaire 4 times over or whatever because of his ownership stake in this SPAC that's about to go public.
So the actual people behind the SPAC is a P.O. box in
Kansas,
some obscure fucking place. So there's no physical address.
It's got to be Delaware or somebody that has
something
good
like
corporate shielding.
Yeah, so that's all kind of dodgy right there.
Is it though?
Yeah. So here's
where do you think Biden's book fucking shelter company is?
I don't know, man. I don't know of any Biden SPAC. So, Anthony Scaramucci?
Yeah.
From the Queen song fame, Scaramucci.
Yeah.
Scaramouche. I like to dance the fandango. Anyway.
Thunderbolt and lightning. Very, very frightening.
Anthony Scaramucci is
Galileo.
saying that maybe it would be good if the SPAC does well, and maybe that will prevent him from running for president, because then he would obviously have to again
count his billions.
Again, say he's going to divest his interest in the Truth social network, but then not do it. So maybe we'll keep him out of it. We'll see. I mean, here's the thing. The common knowledge here is that, excuse me, running a social media platform is very difficult. And starting it up from scratch is difficult. And he sucks. He's not a good businessman. He's made money in entertainment, and he's made money in licensing his name to different things. Trump underwear.
Trump water.
Trump steaks. Trump college.
Trump ties.
Yeah. So
Trump watches.
Trump prostitution. Oh, wait, no, that's something. That's not well
Trump
known.
pimping is what it's called.
Trump
that's
pimping.
The new name.
Nice. Pimp like a Trump. And so it's not very likely that he'll do well with it, right? So
is that bad then? Because if he doesn't do well, he's going to have to get back into politics?
Well, I think that, he's just not a good businessman. So the idea that – so here's the thing. He has been recently offered by other platforms, including Getter and other situations, upwards of $100 million.
He should be Grabber.
$100 million.
That should be the name of his platform.
It should be.
Grabber.
Should be.
Grabber by the puss.
The Billy Bush Grabber platform. So he has been offered upwards of $100 million to join Getter or get on. some of these other, there are some other social, they're glorified blogging platforms and things like that. And he's turned it down because he wants to be in control, right? He doesn't want somebody from Getter coming to him and say, hey, you can't shit talk Dominion voting machines like that because they're going to sue you for $100 billion and take us down with them. And he's not, so he doesn't want to hear that. So, and because he's a super narcissistic egomaniac idiot, he likes the idea that he's the controlling interest in a social platform that he's on.
But this is the second one, like you said. What happened to the other one? It was like maybe back in July, right? There was supposed to be a launch. And then what happened? Did it ever launch?
The first one was a glorified blog, and I think it was called From the Desk of President Donald Trump or something like that.
Donald J.
And Donald J., the Commander-in-Chief, 45th President, or whatever it is. And it just kind of fell apart because it was nobody was reading it, so it was embarrassing. So he
What's the difference this time around? Did he raise money?
Don't know. And this SPAC thing will come in with will be more of a social platform than a blog, right? So
like a Facebook?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be more based on that kind of a model. And Donald Trump is not capable of running that kind of a business because he doesn't know anything about it.
It's just his name, right? Essentially, because how hard could it really be if you think about it?
Well,
there's not a lot of, I would think, I've never tried to start a social media platform, but what is it really? You need infrastructure, which is a place that houses whatever the shit behind the scenes that makes it work that you can log on to.
We'll see.
And the key is it's a marketplace, right? Why would I want to go to that marketplace? Because in this case, Trump thinks it's because he has the name recognition.
For the social media, why does he want to go that way? Well, I think he's overestimating how many people will either put up money or, participate in something that isn't a Facebook that has other things that Facebook has, right, that people like. So I don't know, I'm going to get more information on it. I just started hearing about it this weekend, and but it's a SPAC, so it hasn't happened yet. So we'll have to see how it goes.
But it's interesting, though, that he's deciding to take it public. Like you could keep it private, right? Which would mean more funding.
But then, more funding but then that's not a public. So the disclosure rules and things are different around that kind of a setup, right? So, it's all about, this is good. Besides being a place where he can spew his nonsense and lies with impunity for the time being, and not be at the mercy of being deplatformed by yet another platform, I think he's just trying to figure out a way that he can continue to generate money. He's apparently he is persona non grata to the business community as far as getting loans or doing any kind of actual. Trump Industries is kind of dead in the water.
Do you
right
think
now.
that is? I always ask you things like, "Hey, does that give you comfort? Do you feel better by this? What do you think about that?" He is not flying the plane, the $100 million plane anymore because he can't get parts for it because he can't finance it. Does that make
true?
Yeah, that's true.
I haven't been following that. Yeah,
the 757.
Yeah.
So if the big banks like whatever Deutsche Bank and the other banks that were backing him are essentially saying, "Hey, we can't touch this guy. He's too much of a liability."
Yeah,
you feel good about that?
I think that's a big problem. Travis, it's funny. I listened to somebody named a Republican legislator that's on a committee that's on the he's on the antitrust committee that did an investigation of the 5 big tech firms and is making a bunch of recommendations and has put up 4 or 5 different bills, a couple of no-brainers and some harder ones, antitrust bills that change some of the laws and stuff. And he's one of the few Republican voices on it, but he believes in antitrust in the sense that he doesn't like what Facebook, the whistleblower, what is coming out about these. It's not just Facebook; it's Amazon and everything. So, heard him talking about his take on platforms, limiting free speech and are So he does feel that social media platforms, all 5 of them, have discriminated against conservative voices. Do
you agree with that?
Well, I think it's kind of a ridiculous statement in the sense that nothing gets more engagement on social media than wacky conservative theories about things. And so the truth is that more people see the misinformation, the anti-vax, the big lie propaganda that comes from the right wing on social media than anything else.
Is it not true that it's maybe a fact, but it's irrelevant in the sense that, like, what's the comparison that the liberal voices aren't being canceled, and they're not being canceled because they're not saying crazy shit? You know what I mean? So it's not a fair comparison, but is that really what they're saying, is more conservative voices are being canceled? And is that factually true because literally no liberal voices have been canceled?
Well, I think that could be true. They say that more conservative voices have been taken off platforms, right, than liberal voices, because, and the reason for that undoubtedly is that the liberal voices are not putting out patent lies that everybody knows are lies. And so most, if not all, including Getter, have rules against posting things that are factually untrue. So some things can fall into that kind of, gray space where it's like, well, I'm saying something that everybody thinks is untrue, but it's not proven. But misinformation about election fraud or misinformation about vaccines and stuff, that stuff is untrue. And so, some of that has been censored because it shouldn't be out there. But the contention from a lot of the right-wing conservative voices is that there is an organized, conscious, anti-conservative, discriminatory bias exhibited by the social media platforms and all the big tech places, and that would be collusion. That is simply not proven. I mean,
and I don't think it's happening.
There isn't a shred of evidence to back that up. The statistics don't back it up. So that's just something they say because it's just more misinformation.
Like, if you're a fuckhead, it's probably likely that if one platform thinks you're a fuckhead, the other platforms are going to think you're a fuckhead and want to take you off. Like, they're not having a secret meeting of the collusion to deplatform all the fuckheads. It's, we don't want you saying what you're saying.
Well, I think that what happens is that some threads of misinformation by certain conservative sources, right, are going to garner more attention and more possible liability for the social media platforms than others. And so they're going to get the attention, and especially if they're being widespread dissemination on multiple platforms, say by the Speaker of the House or Matt Gaetz or the Heritage Foundation or Marjorie Taylor Greene, or you name it, right? Jim Gordon, right? The guy that never wears a jacket, always has the shirt sleeves and tie thing, right? Thinks it makes him look, that's his thing. Everybody else is dressed nice and he looks like an idiot.
But he's following the Jim Cramer look.
That's his framer. That's his freedom, death thing.
This isn't the same level, and I'm not trying to make a comparison, but it bugs the fuck out of me, and I usually see it from Kamala when she posts things like, the Biden administration has created more jobs in the first few months of his presidency than any president ever in America. And maybe that's true when you compare to where we were when they fucking tanked the economy, but you don't get credit for that. These are jobs that are coming back from when you stole them from people during the pandemic. So if you look at the number of jobs growth year over year, maybe she's factually true, but come on, get off your fucking high horse.
Kamala and Biden were not neither of them were.
I get it. You know what I'm saying. The Democrats were the ones who wanted businesses to be closed. That's all I'm saying. So you can't force those business closures and then say, okay, folks, you're back to work, and we created all these jobs.
Well, I was going to tell you something. So I'm going to kind of not sidestep your assertion there, but I'm going to, because I was leading up to trying to tell you how my view on something has changed a little bit more toward yours. So
okay, this I want to hear. Let's do this.
Okay. thought I'd better tell you up front. So let me see. I don't want to make a long speech. Just we have talked a lot about whether, all the misinformation and all the crazy batshit crazy stuff from Trump and Leslie Graham and whoever else it is should just get out there, right? And we should just let it all get out there and let it all get sussed out, and that's good. And that way you hear all the crazy stuff. Okay, so I think my position has changed a little bit on some of that to where I think I have come your way on that thing in the sense that I am starting to feel that possibly if the really crazy shit continues long enough from the same sources, they eventually start to lose credibility, even with the conservative side of things, right? With those voters to some degree. I think that you have to draw the line though, when the stuff that you're talking about trying to mitigate off these platforms is straight up misinformation, like wrong information about vaccines, that is couched in somebody's personal opinion about the vaccine thing, and it just turns out to be misinformation that could be responsible for the difference on the national number, which currently stands at 57% of Americans are vaccinated. When
I thought it was higher.
That's where it sits now.
Maybe that's full.
It should be 70 by now, easily, and then we could probably be seing,
I thought it was like
relief.
69. Maybe it's 69 with one dose.
57 fully vaccinated. Yeah, it could be higher for one dose, but 57% national for fully vaccinated.
I was telling you real quick before we came on today that I was at a wedding yesterday and we had to show proof of vaccination to attend.
Ooh.
So, I mean, listen, people should get vaccinated. People should not be forced to get vaccinated. That's my statement.
Yeah. Weddings and anti-vax and anti-mask stuff hitting a little close to home. So, there was a wedding in our family scheduled for yesterday that is rescheduled today because it's up around Reading, right? So it's raining. It's so windy. It was an outdoor venue, and they had to reschedule. So it's going today. Hopefully things are better today. I don't know if they will be or they won't be. So.
Yeah, we're supposed to get a lot of weather here, and as I commented, like the biggest rainstorm of the year, and you're wearing shorts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not here yet, so. And for the 15 seconds it's going to take me to run out of the studio into my truck, and then
you don't need to worry about it.
I'm not going to worry about it. I don't melt that often, so it's pretty good. So I will tell you that had that wedding gone on, you might not have been allowed in if you were vaccinated. So
not vaccinated.
No, vaccinated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of anti-vaxxers involved in this particular union, and that's perfectly fine for them. But I mean, they're vocal about it on social media and stuff like that. Not anything I follow, so this might be news that I even know about it.
Are they going to be on Trump's new platform?
I wouldn't be surprised. They appear to be very much in line with that way of thinking, right? So a lot of stuff on Facebook about, for instance, what the hell was it? There was a supposed sick out
for schools
from airlines or something, supposedly. Oh, the Delta or the Southwest problems. A couple weeks ago,
flight cancellations.
Yeah, so there were apparently posts on Facebook praising the Southwest people for taking an anti-vaccine stand, and so the crazy conspiracy there was that that's what caused the big, huge snafu with Southwest Airlines, which is nonsense. That's not what caused it.
But, it had its desired outcome. The effect was that they've already rescinded that. I think we talked about this last week. Southwest was one of the leaders in taking that position, and they had asked the other airlines to follow suit. And then, whether or not those cancellations were related or not, the the staff, the pilots, made enough noise that essentially they've already backed off that stance.
Well,
and so did the other airlines.
I don't know, but there's, again, more misinformation from that crowd that where they make accusations that are not based on anything, right? And so I think that's just, that's fucked up and dangerous, right? Southwest Airlines has overextended itself with too many flights as they tried to expand in their competition with other airlines around the country, and they got themselves so extended that once they had some weather problems, it caused a domino effect through their whole schedule. That's it. They're even, and rather they've backed off the November 1st timeline for vaccination or not, I'm not really sure, but let's assume they have for a minute. Eventually they're going to have to get with it, because it doesn't matter if it's a federal mandate, then there'll be consequences that they'll suffer one way or the other if they don't comply. So yeah, there may be some temporary thing while they try to, listen to but it's a very small amount of their people that are not vaccinated. I don't know what the numbers are. They have something like 67,000 employees or something, and 650 or something don't want to get vaccinated.
But isn't that...
can all, and here's what I'm going to tell you about all of these organizations, all the cops that don't want to get vaccinated, all the firemen. It's time to let them all get fired.
But they won't.
The fuck out,
some places are doing it, like hospitals, nursing staff, doctors. We've talked about that.
Letting them go,
letting them leave. Yeah. Other places they're not, and you just assume that they need the workforce. They have no other option.
It's a little tough right now.
And there is a difference. This isn't my point, but there is a difference, I think, like Southwest, I read a little bit about this, between the pilots that were staging the walkout, if you will, versus being anti-vax. In other words, many,
there was no walkout.
Whatever the protest was,
there was nothing.
There was, and there was with schools. It was like a blip that really didn't have its effect. But here's what I'm saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Many voices were saying, "Hey, don't misunderstand us. We're not anti-vax." Many of them were saying, "We are vaccinated. We're just opposed to having our companies tell us we have to." So take that for what it's worth. But what I was really going to say is, isn't this an example of
listen? We don't want to be the vaccine police. Isn't that the thing that some of the companies
like
are
In-N-Out? That's what they said.
Well, but In-N-Out is the shirts and shoes police every fucking day.
I get it.
All right. Well,
because that's
game, point, and match.
It's not though, because that's that's the thing that they care about, right? I guess, or maybe the cities require you to have shirts and shoes. I don't know.
In-N-Out, great burgers. Right, and I will probably continue to eat there when the mood strikes me, just as I continue to eat at Chick-fil-A. But the owners of both of those companies give me heartburn all the time because of their stupid religious-based.
But do you ever let that
political nonsense?
That's a good topic, and I think it's important. And because we're political junkies, we're aware of this stuff and we talk about it. I think most people are not. But even when I become aware of it, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm not going to let anybody tell me what I can eat or drink because of who's behind it. If I like the fucking hamburgers, I'm going to eat the hamburgers.
Yeah, but unfortunately for me, I feel to some degree that I can eat the hamburger or eat the chicken sandwich and then I can say that I think their political views on both of these issues are fucked up.
But Chick-fil-A is not putting like Jesus juice on your chicken sandwich. You're not going to be more Jesus-y.
Putting prayers on my lemonade cup, right?
Are they?
Need that. Yeah.
Is there like little prayers?
I guess. I wasn't.
Do you ever
aware.
even read that?
No, I wouldn't.
Even back in the day, like
I don't read. I don't eat breakfast and read the box.
You remember like when McDonald's and Taco Bell used to have those little peel-off things on the cups, and you like win a prize, and most of it was a free meal back at their restaurant, but they dangled you in by win $1 million. Did
you not listen to the huge podcast and about the McDonald's
was it ours?
No.
Oh.
it's called McMillions or something.
Oh, I heard you. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, awesome.
Was it a scam?
Yeah. Well,
did somebody win $1 million?
Yeah,
or $1 million French fries.
They had these $1 million giveaway things. It was McDonald's. It was Monopoly or something.
Yeah, I remember.
So it was a huge scam. There was a guy that was, you know, it was all mobbed up and you know, he was picking the winners and all kinds of shit. It was crazy.
But even,
and guess what? It all happened in Florida. It all started in Florida.
Florida's awesome. Somebody was posting some shit on Twitter this weekend about Florida, and I said everything's better in Florida.
Jesus Christ. Did you hear that the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, is coming to California's aid by offering to have the ships that are stacked up outside of our ports, 70, just 80 deep out in the ocean, come on down around the Horn and through the Panama Canal and come on up to Florida.
Probably would be faster.
Well, here's the thing. So if they're waiting 10 days out here at anchor,
more than that, they
can get over to Florida in a couple of days. But here's the problem. And Florida does not appear to have the big backup. But here's what Florida doesn't have. Let's say all of the ships stacked up outside of the port of LA, zoom around over to Florida. They've got a couple of ports there. Here's the problem. Florida doesn't have any trucks or drivers or anything to get the shit out of the port once they get it off the boats. That's one of the reasons why the ships don't go there in the first place. They don't have the infrastructure, the amount of trucks, and the logistically, they're located.
Listen, he can't solve every problem. He's just solving the first problem. Get through customs.
They're located down on the dick of the East Coast.
I think the average days that ships used to be in holding here off California prior to this whole mess was like 10 to 12 days. I think it's like 3 weeks now? It's crazy.
I don't know. I mean, you hear varying things, right? I haven't had an update from my one contact that knows something about it on that particular thing since last week. So, you know, this whole 24-hour, we're going to work 24 hours. I mean, that's just saying it in the White House doesn't make that happen, right?
Everything that's said in the White House doesn't make anything happen.
You make it hard to get on the, try to give you a little credit on the other side. So did I ever finish what I was saying?
You were saying you were really doing a good job of telling us how you agreed with me and you were coming over to my side and you were really building it up and you never got to the crescendo.
Wow. You listen to stuff the same way that they put it out. So, I guess I did get there. I guess really the point of what I was trying to say was, I moved a little bit more toward not worrying so much about whether the crazy gets out from the far right or not, unless it involves misinformation about things like vaccine stuff and things that can cause real harm, right? So, stupid, crazy conspiracy theories and nonsense, I think the longer that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jim Gordon and ex-president, soon to be convict Trump, you talk their shit, I think people do start to see the nonsense of it. So,
well, speaking of conspiracy theories, Did you see this other news story? I think it was last week where the Chinese were there was a report that they were testing some hypersonic jets, and there was Biden was concerned about this because as the story goes, there's these hypersonic jets that have the ability to carry armament, and it basically defies the laws of aerodynamics and anything that we could possibly know. And is the U.S. military at a disadvantage because do we have that technology? And could it be that all of the UFO sightings that have been in the news lately are really just, Chinese warcraft?
Wow.
And this isn't an anti-Asian thing, so fuck off, people.
I haven't heard anything about that.
I mean, wouldn't that be wild if these UFO reports really were just, military planes?
Chinese military
I mean,
planes
why not, right?
In the hyper atmosphere?
And it could, we're busy sending dick rockets into quote unquote space, which is really not space.
Well, think about it. So that's Bezos, right? And then you've got Elon Musk, who's busy transporting actual astronauts to the International Space Station. So that's all pretty legitimate. But then you've got Branson, who is testing and developing a different technology that is a plane that will travel at hypersonics, not supersonic, right? So
like Star Wars Lightspeed stuff.
Well, here's the thing with the Branson plane, right? And the technology it represents. And trust me, that plane's not being developed in a vacuum, right? We're just seeing what they'll let us see, right? What's the classified version of that project?
Is he working with military?
I mean, how would we know, right?
So let me ask you this question. Whether it's Branson, Musk, Bezos, do you think, is there more to the story? Do you think that, to be able to do that, take the politics out of it, take the ego out of it and these personalities, to be able to throw the kind of money that they're doing at and building these vessels, that's pretty cool and impressive. Is it possible that they could be doing other things simultaneously and in conjunction with the U.S. government? Is this just
I think it's possible. I mean, I think that the military implications of the Branson, technology is that they're developing basically, plane technology that will fly a plane out above the atmosphere into the, below the, I forget, I don't have all the terms.
Stratosphere,
below the actual edge of space, but where they can travel at very, very high rates of speed with a very high trajectory, making their ability to traverse the world make supersonic travel look like you're, traveling in a pedal car across the, across the country. So, I mean, I don't think China is the only one that's playing around with hypersonic, hypersonic planes of some type.
Is the Branson plane? Do you know? Is it regular jet fuel or is it like hydrogen fuel?
I don't know what kind of fuel it is. I think that the Branson plane is taken up. The current version of it is. So there's no big rocket on the ass end of that thing because it's transported up most of the way by a different aircraft, and then it's released, right? So you eliminate the need with that for a giant, rocket, a giant
and
bomb.
Excess fuel.
Yeah. So you transport it up pretty high, and then it only has to have enough fuel to get it the last leg into the, out of the atmosphere and up to the edge of space, where then say that was a military application, right? And instead of carrying space tourists or whatever, right? It's got nuclear weapons on it or something. That sounds a lot like what you're describing is the
I think that was the implication.
Well, I mean, they are in space, so they obviously have the technology to do that kind of stuff, and they have no requirements to be open about it to anybody, let alone us. And you know how it works in the United States. We like to say everything is, what's the PC word you're going to hate? Transparent and all that. But the truth of it is that whenever the military decides they don't want the U.S. public to know about something, they simply don't tell us. They classify it, and then it happens anyway. And I'm not opposed to that one way or the other, assuming that they're working in our best interest. But
what do you think about that?
What are we supposed to do about the Chinese doing that? I mean, what are we supposed to worry about? That we're doing it already. We're shooting planes into space that can travel at high speeds and could deliver payloads anywhere. I mean, it's not like shooting an intercontinental ballistic missile from the East Coast that could possibly reach the Eastern Europe or something.
Well, the implication. We're doing it for the greater good. We're trying to go to Mars, and the Chinese are building weapons to attack the United States.
We are on the side of God.
We're looking for the many gods out in space.
The many gods.
What that point you just made, though, about, we assume that when things are classified, in this country anyway, that the U.S. government has things in our best interest. So as you like to point out on the show, you're much, much older than me. And so when you look back in your time on this earth, how has that evolved? Has it always been that way? Have things to you become more classified? Do you think the U.S. government is keeping more secrets? When was the first time you were aware of that, oh yeah, there's shit that the public can't know, but that's okay because it's the government and they're watching for us?
Well, I think that we all became aware of that when and I'm not going to have all the data and names and stuff, but there was a very fast high altitude spy plane that crashed over Russia. And the pilot survived.
The U-2?
And was captured, yeah. And so I think that's when all the bubbles around our altruistic aims, hey, listen, that's when it became public knowledge that.
So how old were you?
Was I born? I guess I was, probably in the 60s or something, right? So was that when I became aware of it in retrospect? I mean, when I learned about it, but I think many other things, right? And then we've talked about some other classified military things that have resulted in horrific aggressions toward people of color, involving medical testing, use of psychogenics, military testing of different things on marginalized members.
Isn't that all kind of around the same general timeline?
Well, I mean, look, there was.
What would you say, like the 40s through the 60s?
The Cold War, yeah. After the Second World War, as the threat of communism. Remember that. So as we talk about conspiracy theories and things like that, a lot of, and this kind of does tie back to the other thing I was bringing up. What's the danger of letting conspiracy theories just fly, right, in this day and age? Now, so you need to think of McCarthyism as a conspiracy theory that caught fire and went wild and caused a huge amount of damage to our social fiber and trust in the United States and in the government. And that was because that was a conspiracy theory that got picked up and preyed on people's fear of communism, right? And so that's what that was.
Your neighbor was a secret communist. Communists were infiltrating the government, infiltrating the workplace.
McCarthy was the Alex Jones of the 60s, right? And so that's why the shit's dangerous, right? It can get
Isn't
out
that
of
like
hand.
the witch hunt of the 1600s? Is that when that was?
I guess that's a decent comparison. I don't even know if it was the 1600s. But I think that on a geopolitical basis, right, the McCarthyism was a scary thing, and that's the kind of shit. Now, right now in real time, as we're speaking today, Sudan there's a military coup happening in Sudan. The prime minister and most of the government top officials, the prime minister's under house arrest. Most of the top government officials in that country have been arrested by the military. It was just a couple of years ago, I think, maybe, that the military, in conjunction with the people, deposed a dictator there. I don't have that name either. And then they promised to turn over the reins of government. It's supposed to happen in about 6 months from now. And now all of a sudden the military has said, hey, we're putting the brakes on that timeline.
Go figure.
So what's really happening, right? So so this was probably one of the most promising, stories of fledgling democracy in the world happening there in Eastern Africa, which is, the whole thing is a hotbed of political turmoil, right? And so that's very sad, right? And we don't know what's really happening there, right? But you can look and see. I mean, we talked, I think, in the last podcast about were we close to in the last election and with the election fraud theories and all that bullshit, were we close to, was the democracy close to failing? And I think, I feel it was probably a little closer, and you don't feel it was as close as I do. And I think both sides of that are reasonable. Nobody really knows exactly. The good news is that it held and we're still here for now. And you look at something like what's going on in Sudan and you see how fragile, how fast it can happen. And when you have situations, I mean, let's look back what Trump was doing. He had hoped that certain military officials would side with him and overturn the election. There were plans made, and this is all going to come out, I'm 100% sure. General Milley saw it, and, a dedicated, long-serving military officer of that stature to have taken the steps that he took after the election and before the before the Biden administration took over, to make sure that no military that the former president could not utilize any military forces to start a state of martial law or militarily go in and overturn elections or anything like that. We were close.
Do you think there were actual steps put in play to figure that out, or do you think, like, I think it's a general assumption that most of the military aligns more conservatively. I think that's kind of my gut feeling. And so do you think that from the Trump standpoint, it was, hey, if I need to activate the military, they're all going to stand with me? Or do you think that there were maybe things put in motion to try to make that happen?
I think there were a lot of I think there were plans that would have eventually involved the military if the election was going to be overturned, if the 2020 general election, if the results of that were going to be changed in some way. I mean, I think they fully intended
for Trump or against Trump?
No, for Trump, right? That they were overturn the election results.
Well, that would be good, right? If I'm understanding what you're saying, that in other words, if the election got changed to Trump, the military was going to say no, the process is what it is?
No. I think that Trump believed he was going to garner military support to overturn the election. The election results that put Biden
in his favor.
Yeah, in his favor, right? I mean, everything involved, that rally, being where it was, that day, trying to interrupt the certification of the election. Did he plan on 500 nitwits breaking into the Capitol? Who knows? But
so is this before or after Pence?
That was dangerous, huh?
We talked last week about Pence, the Pence factor, that Trump said, okay, I'm going to get my boy here to
okay, so his plans to overturn elections in swing states is way before January 6th.
Yes,
right?
And did not involve the military, as far as we know.
No, but had he convinced swing state election officials to not certify elections in their state or to overturn the results or to send alternative electors, we called them delegates. But it's the right term is electors to the college, to the electoral college. That would had to have been enforced most likely by the military. And I think that he felt that he would probably have that support. And here's the scary thing. We have no way to know how many high-ranking military types might be on his side of things, right? And I don't think it's a majority or anything like that. And I think most of the high-ranking military, but I'm going to say by no means would it be all, feel their oath as to the Constitution and not to the president. But I will bet that there's a significant number of high-ranking military types that did feel an allegiance to President Trump, and because they are misguidedly think that anything other than his presidency would represent some existential threat to the security of the United States, which of course is stupid.
Yeah, I think that certainly exists, but I do think let's just
and it didn't hold, right?
No, but let's just go all the way to the end here.
General Milley ran into no pushback to put in the steps to stop any kind of ad hoc unilateral move by the still president of the United States after the general election and before the
certification?
Yeah, or the inauguration, right? Transfer of power really doesn't happen until the 20th. And so up till then, what Milley was afraid of was that President Trump and his group, and whoever that included, was political people, military people, legislators, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers.
So, but okay, let's just go where you're going here. Okay. If Trump gave a military order to basically do kind of what we're saying here, which is, hey, I'm activating the military to do what? To surround all of the state houses, to literally take over. I'm going to declare
martial law.
Declare martial law
in these states.
I'm the sitting president. This is my order, right? And then ... after that,
right?
Do you think that they would have done it?
Well, that depends on the fealty of the military at that time, right? The fealty to the Constitution as opposed to
What do you
fealty
think?
to the
What's
president.
your gut tell you?
I think it would have. I don't think he had the fealty he thought he did. I don't think he had the support
I don't either.
that he thought he did. Right. But he is uniquely delusional.
Well,
right?
that part's true.
Right.
But does that delusion carry over to everybody else?
Well, I mean, listen. Where's the real danger? Trump is an aberration, right? And again, and we said this, and I think almost everybody agrees with this. He's not the cause of all this. He is the symptom, right? Him becoming president is the symptom of something else, and that is the existential threat to the democracy.
But that's interesting the way you kind of, because I don't necessarily disagree, but I also think that in some regards, like we've been kind of talking about, like I say, that I don't think he has that much influence. And I think if he were to make a military order, it would not have been acted upon. And our democracy wasn't as close to being lost so it's kind of two sides of the coin, right?
Well,
like,
here's what you can count on with the Republican Party at this stage of the game. While they think it's advantageous to them, advantageous. Fuck.
Have some more coffee.
I've only been speaking. I've only been speaking English for a while, so bear with me. As long as they think it's advantageous for them to not test Trump's actual power over the political body, then that's fine. Because here's the thing: there are midterm elections coming up. I think that the general consensus is he could do some real damage to anybody that challenges him prior to those elections. That's not him running, right? But so I think the strategy for Republicans is to remain publicly loyal to Trump until 2022, unless something changes and they perceive that will not be advantageous for them. But I believe that the entire Republican leadership is going to stay, and the Republican Party is going to maintain this air of loyalty to Trump and all things Trump until the 22 election.
Were you not encouraged of the article I sent you over the weekend from McConnell, who basically kind of said that, hey, we're looking towards the future? I mean, didn't you kind of get the opinion that he was washing his hands of Trump?
Part of me is part of that article, which does again show that McConnell hates Donald Trump. But
do you remember the source? Was that CNN? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so. And so here's the thing. I think once we get past the 22 and there's no imminent threat of Trump being able to launch to primary, significant numbers of Republican elected officials or potential Republican candidates, then once they're past that threat, then they're going to dump him because he's insane. And I think that Trump's not the future for them. Somebody else is. We don't know who it is. We have listed some of there's always Ryan could come back, although I think he's probably lost his
he would have
momentum.
To come back sooner rather than later.
But McCarthy, and again, I think last week, and I still feel that his goal is to be speaker, not president, which is more dangerous. I'd rather he was going for president, which he would never have a chance. He has a chance to be Speaker of the House if there's a turnover in this election. So, I think those are the things, right? And then, so who are the potential, Republican presidential non-Trump
Sarah
people?
Palin.
Well, Nikki Haley, Sarah Palin, Nikki Haley, Jim Gordon.
Do you think Nikki Haley has enough distance between her and Trump to be credible, if you will?
I don't know. She will not do anything before 2022. But I think all bets are off after the midterms, because there's a distinct possibility, right, that one or both of the houses will shift. And at that point, then Trump is not going to wield the same kind of power. They are all scared shitless of doing anything between now and 2022 that will cause Trump to support even more far-right candidates than especially for incumbents.
Okay, let me ask you a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Let's say that the Republicans win one of the houses in 2022. Do they still need Trump after that? Do they need him?
I don't think so.
So what they need to do is what you're saying is they got to keep the relationship close between now and them, leverage whatever benefit the Trump relationship has, and then get on the other side of 22. Then they can abandon Trump and then go on the hunt for a replacement for president.
Yeah, because his mental decline is not going to be as evident between now and 2022 as it will be between now and 2024. So I doubt if anybody seriously
But here's the other big
considers
thing.
him a contender for 2024.
If he gets this social media platform off the ground and he actually has
But
a
he
place,
won't. Yeah.
but if he does and he starts saying shit
chickens
again,
had lips, they could suck you off. But
but that is going to be. See, I think, like I've always said, don't deplatform the guy. Let him say what he wants to say so you can hear it. And at some point, maybe there's a new crop of political normies, voters, who, in the 2 years since Trump, maybe these are kids turning 18 or whatever, or will be 18 in the next election cycle, and they really weren't paying too much attention to Trump other than they knew he was president. And then he's got this social media platform, and they're like, really? This is what this fucking guy says? We can't vote for this guy. I mean, what I'm saying is that could backfire.
he's not coming. Anything's possible, but it's not very likely he's going to make a success out of this thing. I mean, look, past performance is the best indicator.
I get it. All right, let me ask you another question. If Trump, because I don't really think, this is my belief, and maybe you're not with me, that Trump does not think he can win the next election, whether that's because he thinks he might be in jail or because he thinks he can win. I don't think Trump thinks he can win. So having said that, what's in it for Trump to keep his allegiance to the Republicans? In other words, what is he getting out of it other than just being in the news?
Well, right now he's a kingmaker, right? I mean, he is continuing to set the policy for the entire Republican Party. I mean, if you can think of a single example other than...
But what's their policy other than being anti-Democrat? They don't really have policy.
Right. Well, I mean, there are two Republicans on the January 6th commission, Cheney and Kip Zinger, whatever his name is. Two Republicans. There's evidently Ken Buck has a few non-Trump, and he must be safe enough to where it doesn't matter. Other than that, I don't know. Now, there were 9 Republicans that voted to send the Banner failure to comply with a congressional subpoena to the Justice Department for a criminal referral. So
who is this now? Who?
These are 10. There are 9 Republicans, 10 I think Republicans that voted with Democrats to send the criminal referral for Banner for not complying with the congressional subpoena to the Justice Department.
Bannon.
What did I say?
Banner.
No, that's the Hulk. Sorry, they're not trying.
Did you watch some Hulk this weekend?
They're not trying to indict the Hulk. Sorry, my mistake. Okay, so I mean that was encouraging, but even then, it's a very long process, right? So, a chance for some Republicans to demonstrate they're not completely insane or
maybe they just thought it was the right thing to do.
Well, I mean, that would be encouraging. There hasn't been 10 Republicans that had that type of courage or conscience befall them in recent memory, so good for them. I think we'll just call all of them heroes that exhibit, because it's a dangerous move.
What's a hero? Do we throw that term around too loosely?
Do we? We do. We think that I think that they probably did exhibit some courage in doing that, because it's still very problematic. That could still bring blowback on them. But I think maybe that will be tempered. I mean, what's his face? Kevin McCarthy just wants to turn the House. That he doesn't have any other goals. He doesn't care about the Republican platform or Republican goals or anything else. His sole mission is to try to figure out a way to flip the House in 2022 so that he can be Speaker. And so I think, we all know that, so we'll see. I mean, I already made my pleas last week to people to get out and vote and try to stop some of this stuff. I'm not going to do it again. So interested to see how this goes. I mean, I think the January 6th commission is going to continue. They're going to end up, whether they get the people they're trying to subpoena or they don't, they're going to end up writing a pretty comprehensive report on the level of the 9/11 commission. And just like, I mean, when you take all of the stuff, the two different impeachments and all the testimony, even though it didn't result in a conviction from the Senate, and then you take this report. I mean, I think that the information's there, and it's going to be.
What do you
there
mean
for
it's
history.
there?
Well, it's there.
Are we going to see
documented?
It? Go back to what we were saying earlier about classified information. Will we actually see and learn?
Yeah, this is not the Mueller report. This is a congressional commission, and the standards are different.
Are they though?
Yeah.
Like for example, isn't there implications for some sitting members of Congress that they were involved? We talked about this last week, whether or not they had, wasn't there some information about some private meetings that members of Congress had with their constituents, showing them how to navigate into the Capitol?
Do you want me to pull up a Marjorie Taylor Greene video from January 5th?
So that's
inciting the crowd to riot on the next day. I mean, it's right there. The information's all right there. And a whole hell of a lot of it's in video form.
So then what, and I've asked you this before, what are we going to learn out of the January 6th commission that isn't already public?
I think we will learn. I think we will continue to learn things that have been yet to come to light because of the resistance for getting to the bottom of things from the entire Republican Party. I think we're still going to learn things. We are going to hear, we've already had some testimony, and there's going to be other people that are going to testify, even if Bannon doesn't, right? I mean, you're not going to see Bannon. Trump's not going to testify before this commission.
You don't think he'll have to?
I think they may very well subpoena him, but I think that here's the thing. There's a time limit. This has to be completed long before the 22 elections. So
what does the
January 6th report?
Just the report, or any, like when you say subpoena, that means, bringing people before Congress to answer questions.
Well,
so can that happen after 22?
Well, let's say that the Congress issues a subpoena for Steve Bannon or
which they did, right? Didn't they?
Yeah, they've already had, and that's
already. And he says, "Fuck you, I'm not going to comply."
That's already been. That already has a criminal referral from the Congress,
and he could go to jail.
Yeah, he could theoretically.
Yeah, right? He could, and then if you go to jail, because I read it was something like he could serve 9 to 12 months or something, and let's say he gets out of jail, is that it? Can they force him to testify?
I think not testifying is going to be the thing that triggers him to have to do jail time. I mean, so let's say that there are 5 subpoenas that are issued by this commission that never result in testimony and all result in criminal referrals to the Justice Department.
Mm-hmm.
So the commission might be disbanded after the 22, but the Justice Department won't be. Right.
So they'll continue with their investigation.
Well,
independently.
Every one of those people could be brought up on criminal charges having nothing to do with January 6th, simply for defying a congressional subpoena.
Well, that's what I mean.
That's a criminal act.
Of course. But let's say you're Bannon and you've already done that. He's basically said he's not going to comply. So let's say he serves his jail time.
Listen, if he wants to go to jail for defying a congressional subpoena, then go to jail. I'm okay with that.
But I understand. But then after that, like let's say the Department of Justice continues this for some time, are there other consequences that would come to a guy like Bannon?
I'll tell you something
after
about
the
Bannon.
fact?
He was pardoned, right? He was convicted of stealing money from Republican constituents on a January on a January 6th defense fund, right? That was a scam, and millions of dollars were donated, like $3 million. He took it all. and then was convicted, right, and then was pardoned.
Yeah, but he doesn't have any friends left. Who's going to pardon him now?
Well, here's the thing: his Fifth Amendment is gone, right? He can't go to the commission and take the Fifth because he's been pardoned. He has no Fifth Amendment rights.
So say this again.
He's been pardoned. He received once you get a pardon from the president, you don't have the Fifth Amendment.
Is that right?
Yeah.
The Fifth Amendment, the I plead the Fifth, which is what? You don't have to testify?
Right.
So, but isn't it only for that case? This
is all he's being called in connection with January 6th.
You don't have another Fifth Amendment protection for another?
So. I think once you've been pardoned, you don't have any Fifth Amendment
That can't
rights.
be right.
Well,
what if you're a career criminal? You got to be able to use your Fifth Amendment every time you get in front of the court.
Once you
we have to protect these career journeymen.
Well, not a lawyer. I just played one on TV. So, Steve Bannon, Kash Patel, Mark Meadows. So Kash Patel, advisor to the president, Mark Meadows, chief of staff, right? These people are all they've all been subpoenaed, right? And some of them are in negotiations with the committee to provide their testimony. So
will that be public?
The testimony, yeah, whatever it is. I mean,
are we certain about that?
Yeah, some of it's going to result in stuff like this. Hey, you're going to write down the questions. I'm going to submit written answers. That just depends. That's why it's called a negotiation. That may or may not be satisfactory.
But the public will see those questions and answers?
Yeah, or the testimony, right? And if their testimony is about something that's classified, because this is a congressional committee, so, they all have clearance. So if it's something that the public can't hear, it'll happen in a skiff, right? But so far I haven't heard anything about.
And so the goal is to get this done, if you will, before the 2022 election.
They want to know from Mark Meadows, Kash Patel, and Steve Bannon what if any preparations or arrangements or planning was done between them and Trump prior, or anybody for that matter, prior to the riot. Listen, I'm just going to start calling it a riot. I'm not going to call it an insurrection anymore.
You can call it whatever.
I'm just going to call it stones. Well, it's not because of you, my friend. I mean, I'd love to do something for your benefit, but let's just call it, the riot. I mean, it was obviously a riot. Whether it was an insurrection or something or not is probably a matter of opinion. Because I've listened to some of the things you said about this, and in my rage that was generated by that happening, I want to call it an insurrection, but I don't want to blow it. I don't want to make it more than it was either. Was it an insurrection? Did they plan to overturn the government? I don't know. I think that is more of an inflammatory rhetoric that benefits the Democrats, and isn't. I don't like to see hyperbole and overreach that turns out to not be true, because then it
damages their credibility.
Yeah. So really, I think it was a riot, and there's really no denying that. And
the other part of it is too, we're talking about this stuff mostly, and we're reacting to it in real time. So we know we can go back. I don't know anything. This is an entertainment podcast. I don't know what the fuck I say half the time, but we're responding to it as we have the information.
Well, we can go back to calling it an insurrection once we.
No, I like the riot better.
Once the commission establishes that Trump, worked with these people and whoever, if he colluded with the Proud Boys to
so here's
that's an insurrection.
So number one, to me, the most important thing, and I said this last week, is Trump's involvement, right? So this is the whole Bannon being the secret keeper. What did he know about Trump's involvement? But
the important thing about the commission is to establish through testimony.
I'm not saying the commission. I'm saying about the events of that day and leading up to it. Yes.
Yeah,
what I'm saying is the most important factor, and what we, the people, the minions of this country, we need to know what Trump's role was. What was his involvement? And so this is the end game, right? And you're subpoenaing all these people. My point is this.
So I'm starting not to care what his well, but go ahead.
Yeah, but it is important, because if it's, let's just say, for example, it's Bannon and other people communicating with the Proud Boys and whomever else to say, hey, my boy is going to be up here on stage and he's going to be giving a speech. And while he's doing that, I need you to go, break some shit down, go kick the doors in.
Right.
But if Trump is the one telling Bannon, you activate those sleeper cells, that's a different element because
what is it then?
Because Trump becomes the fire starter, like I said, and that directly
is it treason then?
Yes, I think he should be jailed or executed for that.
Okay,
can't you still execute? Is that a thing that we still do? Do we give Biden and Trump swords and they duel it out?
That would be pathetic. Not even entertaining.
But here is the real point.
Okay,
if you're the sitting president, aren't all of your lines of communication monitored? I mean, wouldn't they really know if he's calling people, texting people, emailing people? In this day and age, in 2020, when this all happened, I mean, can you keep anything a secret? How are we getting reports out of the White House in any administration? There's a leak. How would something like this really, and I'm asking a genuine question, if Trump really organized this or his team, how would that be kept a secret?
I think the most dangerous thing that could possibly have resulted from the Trump administration is the corruption of the Department of Justice during that time. So I think that all of the inspector generals, all of their duties were either suspended or removed during his presidency, and at least anyone that actually tried to take any actions were replaced, right? Because they're in there at the will of the president. So inspector generals, which are the watchdogs over governmental bureaucracies, right? What we've learned is they don't make an effective watchdog for the president because he can replace them. He can remove them. He can.
So what are you saying?
Well,
would they?
I'm not done.
All right.
So and then I think that with Jesse Sessions, right? Jeff Sessions and Jesse the Kid, Bill Barr. No, and Bill Barr, you have the most corrupting the situation that the Justice Department has seen in a long, long time. There have been times in the past, and I don't have all the details right now, but it was no picnic in the Justice Department during the days of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover and so forth. A lot of corruption there. And then a lot of pushback when the Kennedy administration came in, and Robert Kennedy would not play ball with John Kennedy and went after the Justice, took the Justice Department and went after the FBI. And so it's not the first time that you've seen politically motivated activity in the Justice Department. But this time, what we know is that Jeff Sessions, while he was being publicly ostracized by President Trump for recusing himself from the Russia investigation because he had to, because he was legally required to, that might have been the only action that Jeff Sessions took to show any integrity in his entire tenure. All the while that was going on and he was being publicly ostracized by President Trump, behind the scenes he was dismantling the Justice Department. Then he leaves and Bill Barr is brought in, who obviously was corrupt and was only there to be in the pocket of the president. He did everything that he was not supposed to do. So that's the scariest part for me, is Merrick Garland and the Biden administration. Can we depend on them to reestablish the independence of the Justice Department? I think that the fact that Merrick Garland, although he may have some loyalty to President Obama for at least trying to nominate him, is not a Democrat, and he's not a political pawn. We'll see what he is. We don't really know. He was a independent conservative judge when he was tapped by Obama to be the possible appointment to the Supreme Court. but we'll never know. So we're waiting to find out right now.
My question is deeper than that in the sense that you use the word dismantling.
Yeah.
How about destroying? Are you saying that under the Trump administration Department of Justice, that is it possible they would have destroyed evidence or covered up evidence that would implicate Trump?
So let's look at some of the things that happened during the administration, right? Trump had meetings with Russian President Putin with nobody, no readout to the Congress, nobody but a translator that was threatened with criminal action.
Yeah, what did he say? Did he release anything?
He never. So I mean, phone calls.
Do you think he was this was Putin's translator?
I don't know who the translator was. I think it was the president's translator. I don't know.
It was a U.S.
But there was nobody else.
It was Putin.
Typically, there would have been
Trump.
multiple people on both sides listening to those conversations, and every word of it would have been recorded. Always has been.
Right. That's the point I was making, is that you can't basically take a shit if you're the president.
Well, but he dismantled that, right? And so phone calls and different things that happened were not monitored, right? And when somebody did monitor it and report on it, so the guy that was on the phone listening to the call with the
I know the country. I know, yeah. We've talked
not Crimea.
No. We talked about it, but the tit for tat, quid pro quo,
right?
Case.
And so
wherever the fuck that was,
he used the whistle. So he finally, afterwards, he was so disturbed by what he had heard, but the transcripts were buried, so it was only him. They locked him. They used, So listen, I don't have a whole lot. I'm sure with a little bit of work, I could come up with a whole bunch of examples over the 4 years. There's a lot of stuff. So in regards to that, Trump covered up tons of that kind of stuff, right? So
at the very least, you're saying it's not out of the realm of possibility that there could be direct evidence implicating Trump in the January 6th, but it could be gone.
It could be gone, yeah. And, how much do I care about Trump one way or the other? I think that the longer the Republicans stay focused on the big lie, two things are happening. They're destroying their credibility. That's one. And that's on my side of the scorecard. I think that's good. But then the bad news is that people continue to be hoodwinked into believing it.
Yeah, but even like I said,
it's not brainwashing.
The article we talked about with Turkey Neck basically saying we got to move on from that. He didn't say we got to move on from the big lie, but he basically said
dwelling on close to it as he could.
He came as close to it as I've seen anyway.
Well, he doesn't want to get primaried either. I mean, here you have who was the most powerful Republican in government, even during the Trump administration, is cowed by the possibility of being primaried by Donald Trump, who's not even in office. He's not the president. But yet this guy, who by all rights is 100 times more powerful than Donald Trump should have ever been, won't come out and state simple facts that the guy's a fucking lunatic and a traitor.
He probably thinks that, though, but for whatever reason, he's got to figure out what to say and when to say it, because they're all out to cover their own ass.
Right, because he doesn't want to be primary before Trump is swept away by history.
He's a senator, though. He's got plenty of time.
He's got time, but
didn't he just win re-election?
I think so.
So he's got another 5 years.
Yeah, he missed a chance. I mean, some of the stuff that I was complaining about last week, as far as what Democrats need to do, if you're going to leave dickheads like McConnell in place, I mean, you gotta look. The Democrats have to target these Republican leadership positions and go after him. I get it. He's in a tough state. You'd have a hard time, but I just don't think that they put the focus on it. I don't think, Democrats are good at grabbing defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Let's hope they keep doing well at that.
Well, you should have some hope for the future there, because it doesn't
let me ask
that
you
that's
this.
Changing anytime soon.
I keep trying to say in as many ways as I can think of that the most important thing is to find out if Trump had any direct involvement in this, and if he did, then I'm in favor of a sword, a knife, whatever.
Okay.
Rear naked choke.
What are you, I mean, so that what, because you don't want him to be president again, or you want justice to be done, or
both
what?
of those things.
Okay.
But I guess my question to you is, you seem to be not as concerned about the Trump element as you are. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but
you're right. You're perceiving the right thing. I have seen this in my many years that you have referred to earlier in the podcast.
I said many, many years.
Yeah, many.
I gave you too many.
That's fine. Thank you. Yeah, you did give me too many. What goes around comes around. I don't think Trump is going to get away with this one way or the other. So I think I probably believe in karma more than anything else. So I'm not overly worried about that. Something bad's going to happen. I mean, there's a prostate exam around every corner for him. So whether he likes getting peed on or not. What
do you think is the best karma for him? I mean, do you really think it's dying of cancer, or should it be punishment by the system that he once tried to corrupt, if you will?
I'm not going to hold my breath for any kind of justice on that front, right? I think when he is replaced, right, in the hearts and minds of the conservative Republicans, that he's never really been one of. And though the Trump followers, when they give up on him, and they will, that's going to be the thing that kills him, right? So, I don't really. So I mean, I'm more at this point now. I'm more concerned with what kind of, which head of Hydra is going to pop up in 2024. That's really what I'm worried about for Republicans, right? There is almost nobody. When McCain died, the last Republican that I had any respect for disappeared from the face of the planet. And I currently have respect for Adam Kinzinger and Cheney, Elizabeth Cheney, and that's about it, though. Right, and I don't want either of them for president.
How about we bring up whatever happened to Kasich? Remember, from Ohio?
Yeah, I'm not.
Was he doing anything?
I'm not afraid of him, but he doesn't stand a chance in hell.
Where'd he go?
What is he?
I don't know. He was the governor when he was running, right?
He's the governor of Ohio, or something. So I think he's in obscurity. Now, I don't think he's in the legislature.
He's not holding public office.
He's not a senator, I don't think. Is he a senator?
I have no idea.
I don't know. The only obscure politician that I'm sure about was Hillary's running mate, Tim Kaine. He's still a senator, I think. So, I just don't know which evil, because whoever rises to the top for 2024 on the Republican side is going to be a motherfucker.
Why? Because there's still not enough separation from the Trump years?
Because they, as an organization, have become completely devoid of any kind of ethics or integrity.
Yes, but that's now, right? So there is but there's enough time, don't you think? See, I really think it's all about strategy. And like we've been saying, there's the now, which is before the midterms, and then it's a completely different ballgame after that, I think. And of course, depending on the outcome.
I think it'll be a different ball game, and I don't know what it'll be, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, history tells us that Democrats are going to suck hind tit in this election cycle, right?
In the midterm?
Yeah, I mean, it almost always is a sweep the other way in a midterm after, so you got a sitting president, sitting Republican, you typically have a Democratic, gain in the Congress and vice versa. So, I mean, there's only been once in like the last 16 cycles or something where that didn't happen, and there was some weird shit going on, and so just have to see. I think that we can almost count. I mean, look, it doesn't have to be. That was my call to arms last week for Democrats or non-Republicans or independents for that matter. If you don't want to see this if you don't want to see the likes of Matt Gaetz and Jim Gordon and God, who knows who could come back, right? And Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert and the rest of these knuckleheads, I can't even remember all the names. There's so much evil that can pop up. You better get with it. You better get out there and vote and not allow them to take control. They have jerry-rigged the districts in their Republican-controlled states. There's very little chance that even though Democrats and independents outnumber Republicans everywhere in the country, Republicans have successfully jerry-rigged the districts in most of the Republican-controlled states. And they're in the process of doing it right now, and we don't appear to be doing jack shit about it.
What do you think about this as a solution? In order for you to vote, the names on the ballot cannot say what party the candidate represents. And it would force the voter to go research that person and find out if this is the person they want to send to office. Well, solutionary, my friend.
So then they find that out and they still they still vote down.
You maybe not.
Line.
Maybe some people, don't you think there's an element of brainwashing? We've talked about this too in the labels, Republicans and Democrats, and so many people, I would say most people in this country have bought into and are invested in the fact that we have this two-party system, and they get asked the question, well, which one are you? And they feel like if one person clearly is against their values, then they got to choose the other one, because I think we're still so far away from a legitimate third party or a third-party candidate. And so that goes along with strengthening the labels, right?
Forward party.
Huh? The forward party, yeah.
Forward party.
But I don't know. I mean, listen, I know that's not realistic, and I'm not really saying that, but it sure would be nice if people on the news wouldn't say things, or in print wouldn't say, Democratic Senator such and such said this.
Well, you hear terms in every election like, this is the most significant election in our lifetimes. And, I mean, after you hear it 20 times, it's
technically true.
Meaning.
Like, this is the most significant glass of water that I've ever had to drink, because I need to live today. It doesn't matter how much water I drank yesterday. I need to live today.
I guess the point of that is I heard myself say something I think it was the last podcast, that I'm stuck in this narrow thing where I can only see 22 and 24. I can't see past that. After 24, there's going to be midterms in 26, then a general in 28. I'm likely to still be alive for a couple of those. So, I think I'm really just a little bit over focused. I mean, I think that whatever's going to happen in the next two cycles is going to happen. And then the two cycles that follow may be much more important, because I just don't know if there's enough time. There's been so much turmoil, right? And the Trump years were so divisive, and then aggravated by several things like the rise of social media and the additional aggravation and division that has contributed to the situation, I think is going to play a significant part in skewing results. So I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if the Democrats are going to lose their shaky hold on the all three branches of government, right? Is Biden going to get to even appoint, put one? I mean, let's say somebody leaves the Supreme Court at this point. The chances are that with 3 years to go, the completely morally bankrupt and completely soulless Republicans currently in government would prevent an appointment of a new justice at all.
But wouldn't they just railroad it through? Wouldn't Democrats railroad it through like Republicans did to them?
I don't know. I mean,
I'd almost rather see that.
You need a 60%.
Well, like you said, you got some crossover from Republicans on the January 6th. You got some crossover on some of this budget stuff.
I don't think there's any limit to the corruption of Mitch McConnell regarding Supreme Court appointments. I don't think that any amount of morality or integrity or fealty to the Constitution, that's my word for this week, fealty. It's a medieval term, which means loyalty.
Hey, it was right up there with jousting, and dueling.
Yeah, dueling. I just don't think that I think what we can count on them to do is the exact opposite of whatever is morally correct. I mean, They just don't care. And so is there time? I thought you were going to trying to convince me that there was time for Republicans to grow a soul or something before
Nobody in government has a soul. Let's be honest. But I'm not trying to convince you of that. I'm just trying to say I think that you got to break this down. Maybe again in a sports analogy, maybe into quarters. So right now we're really in the first quarter.
So let's name them. 22 is the first quarter, 24 is the second quarter, 26 is the third, and 28 is the fourth.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So talk about them.
And so basically you figure out the Trump factor and what role he plays into you utilizing him and winning the game. Yeah. And I think so I see it both sides. I just on the Trump side, like I said earlier, I don't think he can win. So I like what you said. I think he thinks he's a kingmaker. He likes that position.
Yeah.
He's keeping himself relevant. He's in the news. He's got this grabber social media thing. Maybe he's partnering with Facebook. Aren't they changing their name? Like this is going to do something?
I think they're changing it to what was it? Ass volume.
Ass volume? I like it.
I don't know. I haven't heard enough about that stupid story to understand what it means. Here's what I heard exactly. They're talking about changing their name.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
To what? For what reason?
Well, you know the reason. The reason is because they got a lot of heat, and they think that if they just change the name, that basically Facebook has a negative connotation. I'm being serious. I'm no advertising guru, but it's all about branding and trust and continuity. And if the brand has been tarnished, you got to change the name, right?
But what has Bezos done? He's out of Amazon, right? He's not the CEO. He's not the CEO anymore.
No, but he still has ownership. He still has stock.
So Mark Zuckerberg, in connection with Facebook, the plan for them, as I understand it, is to change the name and then put somebody else in charge of it as a shield for the liability that Zuckerberg is going to personally face in connection with some of the shit that's going on. And then when you want to call Facebook or whatever the new name is, you're not going to be talking to Mark Zuckerberg or Sheryl, what's her name? Sheryl Stone? Sandberg. You're not going to be talking to either of them because they're going to be in charge of something else, some other part of the country.
Well, that could be technically
some guy
true.
That is getting paid millions of dollars is going to be put in place, and then they're going to refer you to talk to him, and he's not going to answer the phone. Yeah,
but that's going to be more similar to most big corporations than it's not. But here's the big difference, and I don't know about Amazon or Microsoft when Bill Gates was there, but we do know with Facebook that Zuckerberg has some type of...
Who's running Microsoft? You don't know the name, right?
Right, and again, those CEO positions turn over every couple years.
Sendai... Chum. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Right.
But with Zuckerberg, he's got the stock is set up in a way that he has controlling interest and controlling voting power that which from what I've read isn't going to change. So you could change the name, you could change the organizational structure where you might have a new CEO that is literally calling the shots. I mean, if I'm Zuckerberg, why are you there anyway? Go to your yacht in the Cayman Islands and live a good life. You're a young kid.
But the new name is going to be owned by the Mark. What's his wife's name? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
But her last name is Chan, I think.
Jackie Chan?
Yeah, no. Zuckerberg's not married to a guy named Jackie. Anyway, it's going to be owned by the Chan Foundation, which is their foundation. So, I mean, it's just going to be smoke and mirrors. That's all. It doesn't mean anything, right? And we'll just have to see. I mean, we need to see. So what happens to antitrust if the Congress flips in the midterms? So what we've seen is quite a bit of indignation from several conservative legislators in the Senate and in the Congress. So although in general Republicans are not on board with antitrust as a thing, much the way you look at antitrust and go, is that a thing? What is that?
I think that's exactly what I say.
Right?
Is it really a thing?
Is that a thing?
Fuck
is antitrust
off.
a thing? So, but then they do seem to have been affected by a great deal of the revelations from the whistleblower. There are literally tens of thousands. So here's how I heard it described. The amount of documents that were turned over by the whistleblower.
This is Facebook whistleblower?
This is the Facebook whistleblower. Would fill, so a typical file box would fill 15 of those boxes.
Is that even believable? Who uses documents anymore?
Well,
it's
if
email.
you printed them.
That's
they're
killing
not printed.
trees. Why are we killing trees?
It's just a measurement.
Oh, I
they're
see.
not printed. But those are going to be studied for some time, and it is possible that if there's a flip, that Facebook may yet face criminal prosecution, because the reaction among some of the conservative voices has been disgust, not at the antitrust implications of what she said, but at the fact that they knowingly lied to their investors, which is something that typically Republicans who represent the investor class are not down with.
Isn't that what got this Theranos broad in jail?
Well, she's not in jail, but
or she's on trial. Isn't she on trial right now?
She's on trial for criminal fraud.
But defrauding the investors, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's apparently. I mean, there was a lot of fraud, and then we'll have to see where that goes, right? I mean, because there was a lot of. I mean, there was fraud at so many levels with the Theranos case, right? They put in these fake machines into Walgreens. Walgreens got their tit in a ring.
Did you ever see these things out and about?
No.
I never heard of it until you brought it up on the podcast one day.
Yeah, I don't go to Walgreens. I never have. So if there were any in Southern California, I'm not aware of them, but they were widespread. And then what happened is Theranos employed you know what phlebotomy is? That's the practice of giving injections, right? Or taking blood. So Theranos employed phlebotomists to go work in these Walgreens to draw intravenous blood from patients for the blood test, which the whole point of this thing was that, hey, we can do 250 tests off a pinprick out of your finger. And so when they figured they couldn't do that, then they made up a bunch of nonsense reasons about why they had to take intravenous blood, and they had phlebotomists that they hired. But this was all happening in Walgreens. Walgreens is up shit creek. They've got this completely fraudulent, dangerous shit in their stores because they're too greedy to actually vet it.
What do you mean, taking the blood?
Well, everything. They have these fake machines. It was called, so little Theranos stuff here, right? I highly recommend you listen to the podcast, not at the expense of listening to ours, but go listen to the podcast about this Dropout or something, I think it's called, because they put these machines, they put the Edison, which was supposedly the machine that would process a pinprick's worth of blood out of your fingertip to do
whose technology is this?
Well, this was owned by Theranos, right?
But she did this broad. Did she create it?
Yes.
I mean,
yes. But it doesn't actually exist,
right? So she invented this machine.
She got maybe billions of dollars of investment money, right, by putting together a very high-powered board of directors by conning multiple people, such as some famous people like who was he? Schultz was the Secretary of Defense or something.
I read a list of investors.
His grandson was a believer that worked there in the beginning, right?
There's bigger names than that. Names that people would know if I forget them.
Right. And then Walmart or Walgreens played a part in this. Once Walgreens became an investor and started putting them in their stores, that drew even more reputable people to the board. And there's a lot of greed involved here, right? This would have been a revolutionary technology. Everybody involved, including Walgreens, looked past the point where the established fact that this is impossible. You
Yeah, but
can't
wait a minute.
do it.
How was it established at the time? How old is this thing? Is it like 5 years,
It's like
10 years?
10 years old
Okay,
now.
10 years. So 10 years ago, we barely had iPhones, right? I think iPhones came out in 07.
Yeah.
So we barely had iPhones.
Yeah.
And you have this pitch that there's this new advancement in technology, and in order to bring this to humanity, we need investors and we need
This was a Silicon Valley startup.
Yeah.
By her, and it's fake it till you make it, which is the common creed by a lot of these startups that go public or get money or investment or whatever, and you fake it till you make it, and then when you make it, it's all worth it.
But think about it, though. As a consumer, as an investor, we don't know if shit works. That's why we're getting behind it.
Well, and that's why there's criminal liability when you fraudulently convince people that something works. That
that's
doesn't,
different.
And then you take their money.
Like
Plus,
iPhone, when it came out, it actually didn't work. It did everything. It could do a calculator, but it couldn't even make a phone call. You remember how shitty that thing was?
I think we could get into the whole cell phone thing for that. I remember. So wow, this is bad technology. But I mean, the thing was, she went to extraordinary lengths. Her partner, who she's now, they're being tried separately, and she's, divorced, has separated herself from. But they were not doing anything illegal as long as they were in the investment R&D stage. But they put these machines into Walgreens. They told people it worked. People came in and got blood tests that were not accurate, that were not done. Not only were they not done by the Edison machine, which was the name of their device, they were not even being done. You were going in there, giving this pinprick for the blood, or maybe intravenous.
What is this test supposed to do?
Well, they're supposed to be able to do 250 different blood tests off a pinprick of blood.
Like the tests you would do doing lab work at a doctor.
Yeah, for anything from cancer to just anything you can do with the blood.
So
That's
what's the
almost every blood
technology,
test
just so
there
I
is.
understand? The technology is the ability to screen for up to 250 things off a small amount of blood.
Off a pinprick.
But not the testing itself. That was still done the way it's done?
Well, here's the fraud, right? Theranos went out and bought actual standard blood testing apparatus and took the blood samples back to locations where they had the actual regular blood testing equipment, performed tests, and then sent them back.
But even that, I mean, listen, I'm not defending them. I don't know enough about it, but that could almost be like part of the control to make sure that it's working. And this concept, you would think that in modern times we could develop technology to do that. Look how far DNA testing has come along.
Well, I think that's probably, I would not be surprised if that was part of their defense, that, hey, we used recognized standard blood testing technology to verify the results. The problem is they never had any tests. The Edison machines never performed any tests. The machine never worked. It wasn't a matter that they took a bunch of tests. The machines were a mess. Right?
And that's their machine? The Edison is their machine?
Yeah, inside, the blood would go inside to this machine and then get splattered all over the interior of the machine.
Like a paint can shaker?
Yes. The mechanics never actually worked. Plus, it's just not feasible. There's a lot of liability, I think, to go around. I think Walgreens is going to end up in the can.
How are they liable, though? Unless they knew?
Because they put these machines in their stores and didn't vet.
Well, how do you vet it?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You're dealing with Theranos. You're Walgreens, right?
Yeah.
And hey, Walgreens, we want to put these Edison machines that will do blood tests off a pinprick of blood in your stores. Great. You need to prove to us that they work because, our customers need to be able to trust us. Yeah, that's all proprietary, but imagine how rich you're going to get when instead of 250 tests that run over $100 each on average, some quite a bit more, that you can do for $25, right? Imagine how many people are going to flood into your stores to get blood tests right, at $25 a pop.
I get it. I still don't see
right?
the liability
And then
on the
they're like,
Walgreens
okay,
side.
well, all right, I guess you don't have to prove it to us,
But isn't there a difference
That's
between
their liability.
Yeah,
right?
but how do you, I mean, there's so many parallels to draw. Like, I don't understand, I'm not a scientist. I don't understand technology. So I don't tear apart the car I drive to make sure that it works. I just trust that when I push the gas pedal, it's going to go.
If you theoretically had a pest control company and you told people that you were going to eliminate a certain insect from their home and you went out and faked the application, you would be criminally liable for fraud.
I get that's a great example, but I also don't need to explain to them the chemistry behind the products that are used.
Not them,
right?
But if your pest control company is operating out of Walgreens under their auspices, their trust, right? So that people that come in and trust Walgreens will trust you because you're in Walgreens, then Walgreens carries liability.
I don't know. I'm not convinced. There's got to be more to this story.
Well, now, is this a common conservative thread where you just don't want to be responsible for anything at all?
I definitely don't want to be responsible for things.
I am so unmoved by the continuous clamoring from the right that cancel culture and everything is just so unfair. This just turns into a thing where you don't want anybody to have any liability for anything. They're not responsible for anything, and nobody can. And when somebody finds out that you're lying to them and you call them out on it, you're somehow committing some kind of moral sin because you're canceling them because they are pathetic fucking liars.
That's pretty good. You summed it up pretty good.
All right, good. I think I've said all this you said.
Yeah, but I think since you brought that up, for me the most important thing is not zero liability or responsibility. It's finding the correct channel and the appropriate liability. So I have more. I mean, on this Theranos thing, you brought up Walgreens. I mean, the way you've described it, maybe this is your fault. You got to do a better job explaining it. I don't know what their responsibility is.
Listen, yesterday I went into CVS pharmacy and I got myself a flu vaccine. If she gave me, if the pharmacist that works for CVS came out and gave me ivermectin by mistake and my balls fall off, she's going to be liable.
And I don't disagree with you, but that's a good analogy, better than one I was searching for.
Okay.
But let's say she actually gave you the flu shot.
Right.
Is it her responsibility to make sure that flu vaccine is going to work? She just knows that she's injecting something that says flu, and that's what she was given.
Yeah. What's your question?
My question is, isn't that the same thing as this Edison machine? Like, they don't know if it works. They just know that I'm giving you the Edison test.
Well, how about when you go in for a cancer, a blood test that could reveal cancer cells or something in your bloodstream, and they're not actually doing any test worth of shit.
Well, that's different. That's a different scenario.
They tell you have a clear, hey, your test is negative.
That's different. And that's different. And that's different than your ivermectin example. I agree. If you go in for the flu shot and they give you something else, that's different. But if you give me the flu shot and it's a bad batch or it's something else, but I thought I gave you the flu shot, that's not CVS's fault. Or the person who administered it.
Wait. If they gave me the shot by mistake?
No. You said if the CVS pharmacist gave you went in for a flu shot, they gave you ivermectin instead.
Right.
I agree with you. That's fraud. But if they gave you the flu shot and negligence
okay,
and
so
the whole host,
I'm
with you there. So where I'm on the responsibility train.
Okay. All right.
But if they gave you the flu shot, the one that said flu,
right?
You don't think that CVS person checked that it was flu shot?
Not that person.
Or the pharmacy.
But a couple things happen in that, right? The person that gave me that is a qualified pharmacist with phlebotomy training, right? That's the promise from Walmart to me that allowed me to sit down there and let her give me that shot. So in order for me not to have to research her credentials, I got it at CVS Pharmacy instead of the fucking swap meet.
I get it.
Okay.
But the same thing with the Theranos test.
So then if it turns out that she's not competent enough to select the flu vaccine off the shelf, but gave me ivermectin, then she's incompetent.
I'm with you.
Am I going to go after her? I'm not going to sue her. She doesn't have shit. She's a pharmacist. She doesn't make any money, and because that's an idiotic career. Because you don't make any money. You have to get a fucking PhD. You're a doctor in this state, and you don't make the same money.
And there's a certain level of respect as a former pharmacist. I get it.
Yeah. I respect that you made the idiotic choice to be a pharmacist. There's no bank there. But then all that liability falls back on CVS, right? If she gave me something that wasn't flu shot, if she gave me a flu shot that doesn't do me any harm, I don't think anybody,
or any good, and that's the point I was trying to make.
Well, if it doesn't do me any
that's
good,
not
you're never going to be able to prove that.
Well, but okay, so
but
wasn't
if you
there?
give me ivermectin and
I'm with you there,
right? And
I'm with
what
you.
What is that? Some kind of
yes, of course.
But
here's the thing. Wasn't there a story in the news? It might have been a COVID vaccine where there were some bad batches. God, I don't think it was in the U.S. I want to say it was somewhere in Europe where it was a large group of people. Maybe it was Israel. I could have this totally fucked up.
Okay, yeah.
But there was a large group of people where they had hundreds, possibly thousands of people vaccinated with something that turns out wasn't the vaccine. It could have even just been water. I don't know.
Okay.
And so my point is, take this to the Walgreens example.
Okay.
They're importing a box of shit that says flu vaccine or COVID vaccine or Elmer devices.
Elmer glue.
What is it called? Edison.
Edison.
And we're using it, and because we trust that it is what it says it is on the box. I think that's a different level of responsibility or liability.
Right now, the liability is on Theranos. Right?
I
haven't heard anything about Walmart being in court.
Walgreens. I thought you're throwing them in there.
Well, first off, they're having the trial for Theranos. I think they're going to throw Walgreens way under the bus in the course of this trial.
I hope no one sees through that shit.
Well, here's the thing. So it apparently, there are recorded cases of people that got faulty, fucked up results from Walgreens blood tests they did at Walgreens due to the Theranos fraud, and I think that there's going to be a liability for Walgreens on that. I don't think that that's all played out yet. So right now
could be bad.
You have a criminal fraud for them. I mean, what will it mean to Walgreens? They'll get let's say they get a $5 million fine from the FDA. Whatever, it's a fucking parking ticket, right?
Well, listen, I don't know what I don't know about this case or Walgreens. I'm just saying.
Well, look, liability in general, right? I mean, been in business, when you manufacture something, you have certain liabilities that you don't have if you simply sell it. But it doesn't mean you don't have any responsibilities, right? So if you go buy your products at the swap meet, right, and you're not getting them from a legitimate source, and then those products do harm to your customers, you're likely to be in the liability basket, right?
I understand what you're saying. I think
yeah,
so.
Product liability is complicated.
Like there are other sources of blood tests, of course, that Walgreens could have selected, but they chose to get behind this new innovation because they stood to gain financially. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Well, here's what I'm saying. I mean, in a nutshell, and this is what I'm saying about everybody that invested in it. They all failed to vet the product appropriately. That's obvious and then the question has to be asked why, and it's because the greed factor. Had this been true, had the fraud been not fraud, the potential profits for the people involved were astronomical.
Do you know?
Actually.
Well, I mean, like it's like any startup, especially with tech, I would think the returns are astronomical. But do you know, with a device like that, is there some type of federal approval, like through the FDA or anything like that?
There are unanswered questions, right?
Because I think that's different. That's a big assumption. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But let's say like the current blood testing devices are somehow certified, if you will.
You know what? Not up on, unlike injecting something in your body, which is fully under the auspices of the Federal Drug Administration or Food and Drug Administration, right? I don't know that this kind of thing is, I'm not really up on, you're not putting something in, you're extracting blood in whatever way, whether it's a finger prick or intravenous, right? And you're pulling blood samples. And then you're testing it. It's what you're doing and what you're claiming, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, again, I'm just like I always say, I'll just remind you and all the listeners, I always say,
is this the standard conservative?
No, it's not. It's even more.
It's
It's more than conservative. It's more of a libertarian approach, which is you have to be mindful of when we can broad stroke something that applies where you don't intend it to. And I'll go back to the Trump example. In the Trump case, I wish we could take that guy and jail him or joust him. Right. And this is what I currently know. I'm talking about the January 6th thing and his implication. This is what I think I know about that day. Okay.
I thought you thought he was innocent because
no, what
the corrupt Senate did not convict him during the impeachment trial for that very thing.
What I said was,
isn't he innocent?
Well, here's what I said. Okay. What I said was,
sorry,
if he's up there,
I couldn't help myself.
I looked at it from a freedom of speech perspective, and that's what always worried me. And again, I didn't know what I didn't know then, and I don't know what I don't know now. Which is why we kind of, for the last hour, we're talking about the commission and what will come out and if Trump really had a role in it. But here's what I'm saying. If you have a sitting president ask a group of supporters to go and not let the election be certified and go down to that building over there and raise hell, and they do it, is that act protected by his freedom of speech? I think there's an argument to be made there.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time for me. My mind faded. I was thinking about a squirrel. Sorry.
I'm just simply saying my reaction to all of that was if Trump's up there on the stage and asking his supporters to go to the Capitol and raise hell and stop the certification, I felt that if you just stopped right there, that could possibly be protected under his freedom of speech. If it's more than that, like we've kind of been speculating this last hour or so, that could he have been involved in orchestrating the riot that you called it?
Yeah.
That's a different element.
Yeah.
To me, both of them deserve a beating, a jailing, injection with ivermectin or whatever else. But what I'm saying is if you take that same approach and you apply it in other examples, that could be the slippery slope, and that's the position that I always take. You call it the conservative skirting of responsibility, but it's more than that. It's just, hey, let's be careful here what Pandora's box we open. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, we'll let that statement stand.
Thank you.
I mean, I'd like to comment on any possibility that the idea that he had a rally in the Capitol, a block away from the Capitol building on the rotunda, and that he stood on the stage and said, okay, you're going to march down to the Capitol, and I'm going to march with you, and we're going to fight to overturn this election.
Yeah.
That somehow is not the same as going, we're going to go into the theater, and we're going to light the fucking chairs on fire.
Well, I don't think it's the same. They're both bad, and they both should have consequences, but I don't think they're exactly the same.
Well, here's what it is. If Trump was born the day before, if he was born on January 5th, with his big lie thing, and he was convinced that when he went up on the stage that was just a normal group of Trump supporters, voters, no Proud Boys, no organized militia. He couldn't see into the crowd that half of them were wearing a military flak garb and carrying flagpoles and other various weapons and bear spray and all the rest of it. If it turns out that none of his stupid fucking minions like Mark Meadows or Steve Bannon or Kash Patel or who was General Flynn or any of the other fucking lunatic criminal traitors that he hangs around with had not told him all that was going on, okay, maybe that was within his freedom of speech. The chance of that is absolutely fucking zero.
But let me ask you this. If you tell somebody to go kill somebody else and they do it, are you guilty?
Yes.
I'm not talking you hire them, you give them money, you just say, fuck that guy, go kill him.
Well,
are you responsible?
If you have some kind of influence over him.
Well, that's the question.
It doesn't have to be money, right? I mean, so yeah, Manson was responsible. Do you remember?
I remember. I'm
prison.
actually, I know. Reading a very good book about the whole conspiracies of the Manson case.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yes, I think you're going to be in trouble if you are the inspiration that caught. So, you know, what's Trump really guilty of? It's hard to say, right? I think the minimum thing you could reasonably surmise he's guilty of in relation to January 6th, is that he showed a criminal disregard for the safety of others by virtually gathering a group like this together in such close proximity to the Capitol.
Yeah, I get it.
Right? Whipping them into a fucking frenzy with his Nazi rhetoric. And not to mention the other speakers. There was a whole cavalcade of dipshits there. And then directing them to go to the Capitol. I mean, is it not amazing to you that this, I mean, all of this was shown. There was testimony to all of this at the impeachment hearings. Are you not amazed that he was not convicted? I remember at the time you said, well, they didn't prove their case, which is just patently not true.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was starting to say. I remember thinking at the time that could this be somehow a protection under his freedom of speech? Like, what did he didn't, enter the Capitol. He didn't, physically do any of that. I mean, I don't disagree with you. And if I sounded then, that I thought he was innocent, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's innocent now. There should be consequences, if for no other reason than being unpresidential, whatever the fuck that means. I think if you're elected president, there's a new set of laws that apply to you, I guess.
I guess for me, at this stage of the game, I think everybody that matters knows that he's responsible for what happened on January 6th, regardless of whatever you want to call it.
Let me ask you another question.
I think the good news is,
was he already?
People did die.
I understand.
Right?
Was he already off of Twitter when that happened? I forget.
No, he was kicked off of Twitter because of that.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's just say, hypothetically, my question to you is: does this change things? If he didn't have a rally, he wasn't on the stage. He was just tweeting all day. Hey, go down to the Capitol and stop the certification. Would that change things for you? And the result was the same.
I mean, I think it would still be the same in the end, but I mean, I think it's just unbelievable the fact that it didn't happen that way. I mean, I think if he had been tweeting his little authoritarian thumbs off, on January 6th, and that resulted in a bunch of people going to the Capitol and then going crazy and busting in and killing a cop and forcing Capitol Police to shoot one of them and kill her, and all the other injuries and things that happened to
the same outcome.
Yeah,
but
it had.
Does that change it for you or no?
Well, I mean, and I think that at least then when somebody said, "Well, is he really responsible?" I guess I could at least say, all right, there's a reason to have a discussion. It shouldn't be a foregone conclusion, because how responsible can somebody be for sitting on their Twitter?
And he would say, I wasn't the one actually tweeting. It was my staff.
But that's not at all what happened, right? I mean, I'm amazed that he could have the rally, set it up, stage it, bring all those people there, sit on the stage, tell them to go fuck up the Capitol, and then people are going, I'm not sure he's responsible. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's what I mean, though. So don't you think they're going to somehow say, they're going to call into question, when I say they're going to call into question, like, if they ever have this thing in court.
Dipshits like Senator Lee say things in the public record like, well, this was just a peaceful protest.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is this. Is there a difference between, he uses the word, like you said, go fight and stop the certification, but does he say go destroy the building and go kill people and take over the government? Is there a difference to you or no?
Did he say go stick a flagpole up Nancy Pelosi's ass? Did he say no?
But that didn't happen either.
No, but he said you're going to go to the Capitol. You're going to march down the rotunda and go to the Capitol, and I'm going to go with you.
I remember.
That's incitement. I don't care how you.
Perhaps okay. I can follow you to that point, but is there a difference between that and saying
you gotta look into the crowd? They're out in the crowd.
I know.
On social media, on Twitter, on what was the old one? Parler, on a bunch of on 4chan and a bunch of other dark net sites, and a lot of places. There was lots of talk prior on January 5th and leading up to January 6th that they were going to go into the Capitol. And that's what's going to come out.
So, right, and there's a whole other element there, right? Because you would think that shit would be being monitored, and then of course
and-
there's the
and
whole
whether
question
he-
about the
I think
platforms.
that's going to come out, and
Yeah.
then it needs to be sussed out about why was that happening.
And that's
who
different
knew-
than the Trump factor,
What
though.
did he know about it?
Maybe the Trump's getting the report that, hey, we're building momentum. You're all over these, we've got the Proud Boys and they're on all these
Oh my God! I can
platforms.
tell you right now, if it comes out, if it can be shown definitively that he knew the Proud Boys were attending that rally, he's going to be responsible for all of the results. Right? You can't know ahead of time that there is an armed white supremacist militia in the crowd you're speaking to, and then claim you're not responsible when you sick them on the Capitol, on your political opponents.
We started the show with you agreeing with me, so let's end the show with me agreeing with you.
Okay, I'm all over that.
So yes, I don't disagree. I mean, I think that's really what we're trying to suss out here is,
Okay.
I'm more with you than I'm not as far as Trump's involvement in this whole thing. And it's, like I said before, as we've documented this on our little podcast here as it has come along, we've been reporting it as we knew the details when we knew them and through our little normie political brains. So,
That's true.
Listen, like I said, I think that Trump should be held to a different standard and maybe, singularly look at this event differently than we might or that I might otherwise take a position on from my skirting responsibility views. So yes, I'm with you.
Libertarian.
Let's do what we need to do to bury this guy. I'm with
Okay.
you.
All right. Then for once, we're in agreement on something. So,
Well, twice in one podcast.
all right, good. All right,
We've
everybody.
had enough fun for today.
Yeah. See you next week. Bye.